Hello everybody, my name is Kyle Kauk, and welcome to my week 1 reflection video for MUX 1403. This month I have decided to create an app, recipe management app, that will allow the user to save and store any recipes that they may find they use frequently and display it anytime on the go. I found a couple direct competitors in the App Store, the first one being Cookbook Recipe, and it was the first one I found on the App Store. So I decided to take a look at that one. And the second one was All the Cooks, which was another application I found in the App Store. And I'm just going to go back and forth between the two, talking about the heuristics evaluation I did upon both of them. And first up, the visibility of the app status. The Cookbook app did a horrible job, I found, at this. In fact, the home page actually had the home button as a back arrow, so right away I was confused and thought I could click on that and actually go back to some sort of a home screen, which was not the case. The All the Cooks app, however, did a great job at updating the user on what exactly is happening within the application. When you clicked on a recipe, the label at the top changed to recipe, so you always kind of knew exactly where you were. Along with, if you would go to browse, it would change to browse, and just always kept the user up to date on what was going on. The match between the app and the real world, neither of the apps really use this. I found that they both asked for geolocation, but I found no direct correlation to the information being displayed and the geolocation of where I was. The user control and freedom I found was very lacking in the Cookbook app. It was very confusing the ads inside the application. I could never actually X out. I always had to close down the app completely and restart it. However, All the Cooks did a fantastic job at allowing the user to escape anything they needed. If there wasn't a back button, there was always the main menu, which would allow the user to go to any part of the app that he so desired to go to. The error prevention, the Cookbook app really did very little in the way of error prevention. I was more confused more often than not, and again, if you made the error and an ad happened to pop up, chances are you were going to have to completely close down the app. So they did a very poor job at doing any error prevention whatsoever, where All the Cooks did a very good job and clearly identified everything in the application that would allow the user to know where they are and what they needed to do, and if they happen to take a wrong turn, the application always allowed the user to get out of the error that they created. And they also always had a confirmation option for whatever action you were doing, like saving a recipe or favoriting a recipe. The consistency and standards, again, the Cookbook app, the icons really leave the user to wonder what is going on. They don't really have any meaning to me, or I just suspect other users, as they're just kind of random and have no markings whatsoever, so the user is just kind of guessing as to what's going on. Where All the Cooks, it does a great job. It has very consistent, it has everything labeled, so the user always knows what they're going to get when they click on something. So there's very little guesswork for the user in that sense. The recognition, Cookbook app, again, very poor. I would say the user would have to recall just about everything, especially with the icons that are used, because they don't really stand out, and it leaves the user to wonder what's exactly going to happen when they press one of them. Where All the Cooks, again, everything's very clearly labeled. There's no recall. It's very good recognition, and the user will be able to find things very quickly without having to remember exactly what they have to click. The flexibility and the efficiency of use, Cookbook app, again, very poorly made. It has a landscape view, and that is absolutely it. If you go into portrait, it just stays in landscape, so there's not even customization in that sense. All the Cook, however, it was a very good one. You can go back and forth between the pages. That has two different views, so if you're in portrait or landscape, and you can customize certain parts of the UI, but not everything. But even some customization is very effective for them. The aesthetics and minimalist design, again, the Cookbook app, very little, very cluttered. The only good thing I can say is at least they did display what recipes were saved on the main screen, so that was one positive for that app. All the Cooks always had just the right amount of information that the user would need. It was never like I was overwhelmed with information, and I could always easily find everything I needed to, especially inside the recipes, which is the most important thing. Help the users recognize and diagnose and recover from errors. Very little in the way in the cookbook app. Again, a lot of the times if an ad popped up and I couldn't get out of it, I had to completely close the app down. All the cooks, any problems and errors I came across, it was always in English for what I had to do and what happened, so that was very easy to find and fix. And help and documentation, neither of the applications used had any help or documentation. The cookbook app should have. All the cooks really didn't need it because I found there was never any issue with me trying to find out what I had to do. So when it comes to interactivity for the cookbook app, the interactivity works relatively well. The taps are used well, transitions are okay. They do support my mental model of what I believe is going to happen in the next step, and they somewhat do help understand where I am within the process in terms of going to the next page. All the Cooks does a better job at this. They use taps, they use swipes to be able to go back, and the transitions are used very good and are simple to follow. They do support my mental model of what is going to happen, so when I click a recipe I do realize I'm going to be taken to the next page, and that is exactly what happens. And they do help me understand where I am in the process, so if I do a left swipe and I go back, I understand that that's exactly what should in fact take place. The flow for the cookbook app, the views are presented, they're good, they're not always concise. They are, however, helpful to accomplishing the task. There's not too many views, you don't have to jump through a ton of hoops to get to what you want to do, so that is a good thing. And for all the cooks, again, it's much the same thing. The views are being presented very well, they're very concise and meaningful, everything has a purpose. They are very helpful towards accomplishing my task. There's definitely not too many views, and that is a great thing because you can get through that app very quickly by either using swipes or going back, doing the drill down and what have you through the menu system. So those are very, very good, and all the Cooks app does a great job at that. The cookbook app is not really appealing or engaging. I find it doesn't really support its context either with the look of it. Does the brand require customized components? Not really. They actually add to the confusion, so it impacts the UX of the app in a very negative way, and I personally would probably take them out completely because they have no function whatsoever and just really convolute the process of the user with them. The Cooks app, however, is very appealing and engaging, definitely supports the context of what they're trying to get to. They do use customized components and they help a great deal, and actually, for the most part, their customized objects, I think, actually benefit it more than hinder it, and in that case, even though the app I think would work well without the customization, I believe the customization goes a great deal in getting the point across and making the application appealing, and really makes it pop off the screen to the user. Now here I have an article I found using EBSCOhost. It's actually a very good app or article. I would recommend everyone to read it, and not just for the marketing side of things, but it actually does talk about what we're kind of doing here and the lessons in app building and going through and getting people's opinions on the apps and what you have to go through, prototyping and everything else like that. And the marketing, it really goes a long way in helping with the user experience because it gets your app out there, it lets the user know exactly what they should be expecting from the application. So going in, they already have somewhat of an idea of what they should expect, and that alone can really help the user experience because they know what they're looking for, and if you are able to give it to them, they're going to always come back for more from your app. So making good marketing towards the user experience is a great way to go and will get people interested in your application. Thank you very much everyone for watching my video. Hope you all had a successful week, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you.